Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador of K80YTV.net, and this is Good Morning Oxnard. And I can't believe I finally have a chance to meet Carmen Ramirez as City Councilor for the City of Oxnard. I have to take a deep breath and just really kind of settle in. She doesn't believe me, but we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. So anyway, Carmen, welcome.
Buenos dias, Peter.
What did you say? I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
Good morning. Good morning to
If you said it in Filipino, I might say it, understand it. But
I wish I knew how to say it.
Como está ka?
There you go. I'm gonna write that down.
No, write that down. No, I want to say, like last night, something incredible happened. There were a lot of people in attendance. Bob Allen showed me a picture. Lots of diversity of people, but the subject was the power plant.
Correct.
And so I want to ask you to start off kind of basic. You know, there's some people who have no idea what that subject is.
Right.
Some people have just a little opinion right in the fence. Some people's got a strong opinion right or left. Why don't we start off with the novices and tell us what this is all about?
That's always a good idea because people have a lot of misinformation, wrong information, no information. And I feel that I've had to study this. So I'm no expert, but I know a lot more than the average person because I have to make decisions. And one of the things is, you know, we have lights on in the building, we're charging our phones, we're driving our cars. We have to have power. Where does it come from? We should know where our power comes from.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and it comes from different places, and it can still come from even more different places. But right now, in Oxnard, our power is distributed by Southern California Edison. There are three main power distributors in California. One is PG&E up north, Pacific Gas and Electric. And in our area, Southern California Edison goes all the way to San Diego. And in San Diego, it's San Diego Gas and Electric. So we have three power distributors, but we have all kinds of power generators. And locally, we have a power generator that's called NRG. It's the letters NRG. They own our two smokestacks that are ancient. They acknowledge that. They're 50 years old or so. And they use a process called once-through cooling, which means they use seawater to cool their gas-fired engines. And that is an old and now considered obsolete technology because it pulls in all the sea life. And in fact, kills billions of parts of animal life. Now some of it's plankton, it's small, and then it can be fish and seals and that sort of thing. And they have a screen to keep the large critters out, but doesn't keep everything out. But so our state water board has decided for two reasons they've got to decommission all the once-through cooling. Once-through cooling technology has to go out of business in California by December 31st, 2020. So we will not have these two power generators. But let's go back. What are those power generators? They are peaker plants. That means when it gets very hot in the San Fernando Valley or all the way up to Goleta, they have to fire these up and run them. When the California Independent Operator System, it's CAISO, asks for more energy, they fire it up and then they get paid for producing that energy. So theoretically, they're not running all the time. They're just running at peak periods. That's why they're called peaker. We also right now have a third power plant called the McGrath Peaker, which our city unanimously tried to stop from coming from on our beach. It was called endangered habitat, but Edison owned it and they insisted. And we had a local coastal plan, which we still have in operation, that says coastal power plants can set up on our beach. So why does Oxnard have three power plants right now on our beach? Because our coastal plan allows it. And it's from 1986, it's old, needs to be updated. And so people say, well, why don't you just update it? Not so simple. You have to get it approved by the coastal plan. You can't just say, hey, we want to change this, here, approve it. It's a long scientific process, and we're working on it now, but it will not be done for a couple of years because you have to provide scientific data about where you're gonna do things on the coast. And now the big issue is sea level rise. We know it's coming, it's already been there. When we have a king tide, you know what a king tide is?
No, is there a queen tide? No,
Maybe. But the king tide is when there is a high tide phenomena that's super high in California and probably elsewhere that comes, and you gotta get ready for it because it will come up the beach, it'll come over the highway potentially and cause a lot of damage to structures. And we've had it for, it's nothing new, but it's getting more severe.
What was the last time we had a king tide?
I think we had one in the springtime, if not spring, late winter. And there's a project that asks people living in the coastal area to go out and film what happens, take photographs, take film of the king tide when it comes. I know my brother lives on a boat in the harbor out here, and he's got a dock. He hooks the boat up to a dock, and the dock went up 9 feet. So something like that. So it could cause a lot of structural damage. And I understand that king tide reached the seawall at the Mandalay plant. So everybody acknowledges, NRG acknowledges, this is obsolete, we've got to change it. So I'm probably giving you too much information.
It's good information. You sure weren't a teacher before this? Go ahead.
I've taught law school.
Okay, that's the
It's
same.
a hard job to be a teacher, I don't want to do that. So we, with the decommissioning of our coastal power plants by 2020, we have to get new energy sources. So Edison, as the distributor, has a request for offer out. Anybody can bid who's qualified and can produce energy. And a number of companies are bidding for it, including NRG. NRG is supposedly looked around and didn't find other suitable, affordable for them places to put it. So they want to keep it there, basically a little closer to Harbor Boulevard rather than closer to the beach. It will not use seawater, and that's where they want to put it. Now, we are under a mandate in the city, like all cities on the coast, to plan for sea level rise. Don't put your critical infrastructure, your fire stations, water treatment plants, your power plants, do not put them on the coast, because water's coming to meet it and will destroy it, and that's tremendous liability for the taxpayer. And if you need it, and it's underwater, if you need your power, and your peaker that provides extra power is underwater, or you have to get a boat to get out there, you got a problem. We all have a problem. Businesses have a problem. Hospitals, schools, homes, we have a problem. So for me, that is the most important reason not to let it be built on the coast. We got to move it inland, so we have a secure power plant. So I feel that this is the word that needs to get out. That's why there will be power. It'll be in a safer place, less vulnerable. And I think more people understand that, including our Chamber of Commerce, which seems to need a little bit more information about this. We will get everybody's understanding, and they'll understand why we have to have this moratorium. Without the moratorium, Edison and the California Energy Commission do not have to pay any attention to what City Council has decided. So it was an emergency because they're going to accept somebody's bid in the next 2 months or so, more or less 2 months. And if we don't have something in place, now we do, they could have just ignored what we're concerned about.
On the 3 power plants, I know where the McGrath location is, because it's right on McGrath Station, on your way to Oxnard between Ventura. Where are the other 2? I'm trying to envision.
Mandalay is where McGrath is at.
Okay.
Because that's McGrath Beach, and the McGrath family, they're still around, they're farmers, wonderful people.
Okay.
They deeded that over to the state of California, McGrath State Beach.
Okay.
Just south of there is the Mandalay plant.
Okay.
There's a canal, it's called the Edison Canal.
Okay.
And by the way, I understand Edison owns Harbor Boulevard in that vicinity.
All right.
So Edison used to be owned by Edison, all
Okay.
these power plants.
That's good to know.
Edison, right next door to across the canal, built the McGrath Peaker plant.
Okay,
And then down at Ormond Beach,
all
we
right.
have the Ormond Beach power plant. The two big ones,
Mhm.
smokestacks owned by NRG,
Mhm.
which formerly was GenOn, which formerly was Reliant, which formerly was Edison.
Wow, you bring me back in time.
Yeah, so if you're, like, say, I was at the Tower Club the other day, looking out the window, you wanna know where the borders are of Oxnard Beach,
Mhm.
Oxnard's coastline, it's the two power plants, one here, one there.
It's a good landmark. I know what you're talking about.
Isn't that such a good landmark? But
Yeah,
it's a landmark.
It's a landmark. I didn't want to say, we'll put an adjective next to it. and all
Yeah,
that.
no, you'll know where our beaches start and begin.
No, I think that does a good job for people who had no clue, like me.
Sure.
I didn't know what a king was, so I need to get a question that I can answer so that people don't, I'm not dumb, but anyway.
Well, not
that
everybody
really-
can know everything, let me tell you.
That really does a nice job of catching people up who didn't know, and possibly people who were on the board. But let's talk to people who might be pushing back, a little bit. What are their possible issues or problems? And I think that's real important to understand what people are on the other side. So
Sure.
what would
Two
you say to
things.
that? Please.
Jobs,
Okay,
and let's talk about that in a minute.
okay,
And the other is energy needs.
okay.
So there's a concern, let me take that one first,
All right.
that if we don't let them build, we won't have power, we won't have energy. And I say, on the contrary, you're making our energy supply more vulnerable if we put it there. As I mentioned, that place is already vulnerable to coastal flooding. People who've lived in the area a long time know that when we have rain, the area to the east, is it east or south? I don't know, we have south facing.
We're like this, right?
Yeah, the one on the mountainside of Harbor, it
Yes.
gets flooded, that whole strawberry field gets flooded when it rains. And McGrath Beach has been flooded, and we haven't been able to use it as much because of the change in just the whole topography, geography. More and more of McGrath Beach is underwater. So it's not the camping ground it used to be, and I think there's a plan afoot to move it across harbor, so it's away from coastal flooding. So that's the main reason that people are worried. We won't have energy. We won't have power to light our buildings and run our businesses and keep our homes going. But again, I say, on the contrary, we have to move it so we do have a reliable power supply for the grid. The other thing is jobs. People have come and said, we need the jobs in construction, in operating the plant. And I say, there will be jobs, there'll be great jobs, the same jobs or even more high-tech jobs. Because the next power plant built, whether it's NRG or any of the other companies bidding, and we don't really know who they all are because it's more of a confidential process. They're gonna use higher technology, it will be smaller, it will be cleaner, and there will be jobs in the construction of it. And the people who work at the power plants, I believe, are not all Oxnard residents, but even if they are, the plant will be in Ventura County, will be close enough for them to get there. And I know that at least one of the other proponents of an off-the-coast power plant is talking to the unions about project labor agreements, good jobs, and these are state sanctioned power plants, and they have to use prevailing wage law. So they can't come in and get people to work minimum wage or sub-minimum wage. Their construction jobs is very important to build properly. So we're not gonna get a crummy kind of plant. It's gonna be well done, and the same folks who are concerned about their work, they will have access to those jobs. Now, the people who are the engineers, they will also have access to running the plant. So the jobs aren't gone if we don't have this plant built at the beach. They're gonna be here in our community, or wherever the folks are now. Not everybody who works at the beaches at our beach power plants, are Oxnard residents. So it's kind of a red herring, if you know what I mean.
No.
It's kind of
Yeah.
kind of a scare tactic, and I would say don't buy it.
Well, to try to pay respect to people who are opposing it, are they saying, when you say vulnerable, are you saying the possibility that they're saying that the vulnerability is a facade, it's not gonna happen, they have scientific proof that that won't happen, you know? I mean, what
Nobody
would you
has
say?
scientific proof.
That's what I'm
We have
saying.
scientific proof.
Right.
The Nature Conservancy has created maps, scientific, cutting-edge technology, which you can go online, go to coastalresilience.org. There's a whole section on Ventura, what Ventura County coastline, what is projected to be in the flood zone. You know, we also have evidence, our national security installations are concerned about sea level rise, I think particularly on the East Coast, because the ocean is impacting them. We have to do this. We have to do this for the strength of our country. It's not to punish NRG or its employees, it's to keep the grid secure. And you know, when there's a fire in the mountains, we have to send our fire department up there. When there's flooding on the beach, we have to take care of it, like Hurricane Sandy, Katrina. The government has to respond, FEMA has to respond. There's tremendous cost when you allow risk to accumulate. So it's up to responsible decision makers to look ahead and say, you know, it would be better for us to move this stuff away from the vulnerable coast.
Very nice stated. When you said you're not an expert, I'm glad you're not an expert. I'm glad you're a practitioner. Yeah, I've seen a lot of experts get drop kicked really bad. And the last thing I want to say is, I am sure glad you're in the leadership position, and I'm glad I had a chance to meet you. And thank you so much for coming in and informing an ignorant person like me on this subject. I am so much more wise. So thank you for being a part of Good Morning.
Pleasure.
I want to say Good Morning America, but this is Oxnard, a beautiful place of Oxnard. Peter Godinez, your best from KADY TV, and Good Morning Oxnard.